There comes a time in every human journey when one must face the quiet war within. It does not roar like thunder. It does not shatter glass or burn cities. No, it whispers, it creeps, it hides behind the comfort of excuses and the softness of routine. It tells you, Tosin, you've done enough. It says, Fajantu, you don't need to change. And if you are not watchful, it begins to chain your spirit to the floor of mediocrity. That quiet war, beloved, is the battle against weak habits. It is a daily confrontation with the untrained mind. We are not born with discipline. It is not a trait passed down like the color of your eyes or the curve of your smile. Discipline is grown. It is sweat and struggle. It is the art of unlearning what makes you small and relearning what lifts you higher. And this art, this sacred work, begins in the mind, because the mind, if not educated, if not commanded, if not respected, will cling to comfort like a drowning man clings to driftwood. You must become a teacher to your own mind. You must sit it down in the classroom of your soul and tell it the truth. Not the soft truth, but the hard, holy truth. Tell it that sleeping in will never birth dreams. Tell it that delay is not rest, it is a thief in disguise. Tell it that every weak habit you feed becomes a wall between you and the life that was meant for you. And then, once the truth has been spoken, act like you believe it. There is no shame in having weak habits. Everyone begins somewhere. But there is tragedy in refusing to rise above them. Weak habits are not only patterns of behavior, they are reflections of belief. When you hit the snooze button, what are you really saying? When you procrastinate on your vision, what do you truly believe? That you have time, that purpose can wait, that the version of you on the other side of growth will come walking in without your effort? The truth is, habits are the prayers we offer with our actions, and weak habits are prayers for small lives. You don't need another motivational speech to change. You need a mirror and a decision. You need to look at yourself, not with shame, but with clarity, and say, this is not the best I can do. This is not where my story ends. And that right there becomes the seed of transformation, not grand gestures, not perfect beginnings. Just the courage to tell yourself the truth and the consistency to build something better day by day. We are creatures of rhythm, and whether we know it or not, our lives follow the beat of our decisions. You wake up, you scroll, you delay, you doubt, and suddenly a decade has passed, and your dreams are still in their infancy. Not because you weren't worthy, not because you didn't have the talent, but because you gave power to weak habits and expected greatness to bloom in their soil. It does not work like that. The harvest will always reflect the seed. If you want to change your life, change your rituals. If you want to walk with purpose, then walk like your feet know the way. Educate your mind like it holds the keys to your freedom, because it does. Your mind is the gatekeeper to every breakthrough you've ever prayed for. And if that gatekeeper is lazy, if it is tired, if it is uninspired, your spirit cannot flourish. You must awaken your mind and train it like a warrior. You must rise before the sun and remind yourself who you are, why you are here, and what you will not tolerate from yourself any longer. Do not fear the work. Fear the regret, because one day time will run out. One day the chances will dry up. One day your name will be spoken for the last time. And in that hour you will not be thinking of the times you rested. You will think of the moments you could have risen and didn't. You will think of the days you let slip through your fingers like water, believing there would always be more. That is the weight of wasted potential. That is the sorrow of weak habits. But that sorrow can be avoided if you choose today to begin again, not in shame, not in panic, but in power. The power to say, I may have fallen, but I will rise. I may have doubted, but I will believe again. I may have lived in the shadow, but I was born to burn. Burn with purpose, burn with clarity, burn with discipline so fierce that the old version of you can't even recognize who you've become. Educating your mind means deciding that your future is more valuable than your comfort. It means saying no to the temporary high of indulgence, so you can say yes to the long-term joy of fulfillment. It means writing down your goals, speaking them aloud, and showing up for them even when the world is silent. Especially when the world is silent. It's easy to move when people are clapping. But can you move when no one sees? Can you grind when no one praises? Can you keep going when the results are slow and your soul feels tired? That is the test. That is the moment weak habits try to creep back in and seduce you with promises of ease. But don't listen. Don't let them in. Don't open the door. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are simply untrained. But training begins with a decision. Just like the body is shaped by repetition, the mind is sculpted by discipline. What you feed it matters. What you expose it to matters. If you flood your mind with doubt, negativity, comparison, and distractions, you cannot expect it to be a weapon of strength. But if you fill it with truth, silence, wisdom, scripture, intention, and belief, you will forge a mind that can carry the weight of your calling. Some people think discipline is punishment, but oh no, discipline is love. It is the highest form of self-respect. It is telling yourself, when I believe in what I can become more than I believe in what feels good right now. It is choosing the long road over the easy one. It is picking up your own cross and walking with it, not because it's light, but because the life on the other side is worth every ounce of struggle. You must remind yourself that your destiny is not an accident. You are not placed here to live a lukewarm life. There is fire in your bones. There is greatness in your breath. But fire must be stoked. Greatness must be trained. It will not bloom by accident. It must be earned, not through perfection, but through persistence. Educate your mind to recognize your triggers. When you feel the pull to quit, ask why. When you feel the urge to delay, investigate it. Be curious about your patterns. Study yourself like a scholar. Do not fear what you find, for everything exposed can be healed. Everything named can be changed, but what you refuse to face will always have power over you. Weak habits thrive in silence. They love dark corners and unspoken excuses. So bring them to the light, call them out, write them down. Replace them one by one with rituals that honor your purpose. If laziness is the habit, replace it with morning movement. If procrastination is the pattern, replace it with sacred scheduling. If self-doubt is the enemy, replace it with daily affirmations and fierce truth-telling. Slowly, steadily, intentionally. Do not try to change everything overnight. That is a trap. Habits are like bricks. One by one, they build the house you live in. You do not build a mansion in a day, but you can lay a brick. Every morning, ask yourself, what brick will I lay today? And then lay it with pride. That, beloved, is how cathedrals are born. You are worthy of a life that reflects your divine design. But you cannot inherit that life with the habits that built your pain. The old ways must die. The small thoughts must be buried. The weak habits must be crucified on the altar of your potential. You cannot take them with you where you're going. This journey is not for the faint of heart. It is for the brave. It is for the soul who says, even if I fall 1,000 times, I will rise 1,001. It is for the person who understands that every minute matters, that every habit is a prophecy, that every choice is a declaration of identity. So who are you? What are you declaring with your actions? What future are you building one habit at a time? Educate your mind to choose the better thing, every time, even when it's hard, even when it's boring, even when no one sees you, especially then. That is when power is born. That is when legacy is formed. That is when your soul begins to rise from the ashes of who you were and become who you were always meant to be. The world does not need more perfect people. It needs more whole people, disciplined people, awake people, people who are not governed by their emotions but guided by their vision. Be that person. Make that decision. Lay that brick. Kill those weak habits with the truth of who you are. And educate your mind like your life depends on it, because it does. And if you think you've waited too long, if shame is crouching near your heart whispering, it's too late, I want you to look it dead in the face and say, my story is still being written, because that's the truth. No matter how far you've drifted, you are never beyond the reach of transformation. Life has a sacred way of giving second chances to those who dare to believe again. But belief must be paired with action, or it becomes a beautiful lie. Educating your mind is not a one-time lecture. It is a lifelong sermon. You must preach to yourself daily. Speak courage when fear creeps in. Declare worth when the world tries to reduce you. Affirm discipline when distractions dance in front of you like glittering temptations. Because they will come. Oh yes, they will come. The world is not interested in your growth, it's invested in your complacency. But you must be more invested in your greatness than in your ease. That is how you win. There is something holy about showing up for yourself, not just when it's convenient, but when it's hard. When your bed is warm, but your future is calling. When your friends are playing, but your destiny is working. when your body is tired but your spirit says, peace and more push. That is what separates the ones who dream from the ones who build. Dreams are cheap. Discipline is priceless. You must be willing to disappoint comfort to honor purpose. You must learn to sit in silence long enough to hear the sound of your old habits dying. And yes, they will scream. They will beg for attention. They will try to dress themselves as needs when they are only cravings. But you are not a slave to what once soothed you. You are not bound to the cycles that dulled your brilliance. You are a sculptor, and your life is the masterpiece. Look around. The world is filled with people who gave up on themselves too soon, people who traded their potential for predictability, who chose familiar suffering over unknown greatness. But you who are listening, reading, receiving, are being invited into something greater, not because you are better, but because you are ready, or at least ready enough to begin. And that's all it takes. Read books that stretch your mind. Sit with elders who carry stories in their bones. Listen to silence and let it teach you what noise never could. This is how the mind grows. This is how weak habits die, not only through willpower, but through wisdom. Because when you understand the cost of your choices, you stop making them lightly, and you begin to live deliberately. Deliberate living is rare. Most people are drifting, carried by algorithms, schedules, opinions, and the false urgency of other people's priorities. But not you. You are being called to wake up, to reclaim your time, to audit your routines, to stare down the parts of yourself that still think small and say no more. You are not a victim of your habits. You are their author. And it's time to rewrite the script. The mind will try to negotiate. It will say just this once. Bansut, you deserve a break. It's too hard today. But you must remember that comfort never changed the world. Every great work was built in the soil of discipline. Every breakthrough began with the breaking of a habit. And every powerful mind was once a lazy one that got tired of being powerless. Train your thoughts like a gardener tends to weeds. Pull out what doesn't belong. Nurture what does. Be patient with the process. Not every seed will sprout overnight. But with consistency, even the hardest soil will yield a harvest. That is the promise of effort. It may not be immediate, but it is inevitable if you stay the course. You owe it to yourself to live as if you believe in your own potential, not to perform for others, but to honor the sacredness of your own existence. You are here, on purpose, for purpose. But purpose cannot dwell in a distracted mind. It cannot coexist with self-sabotage. It needs space. It needs clarity. It needs a mind educated in truth and resilience. Some days you will not feel like it, and that's okay. You are not your feelings. You are the decision you make despite them. Weak habits are born in the gap between feeling and action. That's where they thrive, in hesitation, in delay, in the stories you tell yourself about why you can't, shouldn't, or won't. But you have the authority to close that gap, to choose action, to choose better. The mind, once educated, becomes a compass. It points you toward what is worthy. It helps you discern noise from necessity. But it must be trained. You cannot fill your days with junk and expect clarity. You cannot feed your mind fear and expect it to birth faith. The mind reflects what you pour into it. So guard it, nourish it, lead it. This is not about perfection. You will stumble. You will fall. There will be days when the weak habits win. But grace is stronger. Resilience is louder. And as long as you rise, you are not defeated. Keep showing up. Keep learning. Keep editing your patterns until they reflect the person you are becoming. Transformation is a quiet rebellion. It happens in the early mornings, in the late nights, in the choice to turn off the television and turn on your mind. It happens when you walk past the couch and into your calling, when you speak to yourself with kindness, but refuse to coddle your excuses. That is how change is made, not in noise, but in the sacred silence of effort. You may wonder, will anyone notice? Maybe not right away, but you will. Your spirit will, your future will. The mirror will begin to reflect a person you respect, not for their achievements, but for their integrity, for their willingness to grow when it was easier to settle. That kind of respect is not given. It is earned in the daily unseen choices. And one day someone will look at you and say, "How did you do it?" And you will smile, not because it was easy, but because it was worth it. You'll tell them about the mornings you didn't want to wake up, the nights you almost gave in, the voices in your head that told you to quit. And then you'll tell them about the moment you educated your mind, when you took back your power and rewrote your habits. That testimony is not built in one decision. It is forged through thousands. Tiny, sacred, invisible choices. That is the way of the disciplined. That is the way of the awakened. That is your way now. You must learn to honor discomfort. It is not your enemy. It is your invitation. Discomfort means growth is happening. It means the old shell is cracking. Do not run from it. Sit with it. Learn from it. Let it remind you that you are alive and that change is near. Your mind was never meant to be idle. It was made to explore, to wonder, to wrestle with deep truths and find its own voice. But if you do not educate it, others will use it. They will fill it with fear, with comparison, with urgency that does not belong to you. And before you know it, your life becomes a reaction instead of a creation. That is the danger of an untrained mind. It becomes a sponge instead of a sword. But not you. Not anymore. You are here because you are ready to create, ready to command, ready to lead. And that means you must become fluent in the language of self-mastery. You must know how to pull yourself out of a slump, how to speak peace to your panic, how to hold the line when everything in you wants to let go. That strength does not appear overnight. It is built, quietly, relentlessly. With each moment you choose what you want most over what you want now. The world will offer you many paths, but only one leads to your highest self, the path of education, intention, and spiritual discipline. This is the road less traveled. It is not loud, but it is powerful. It is not flashy, but it is freeing. And if you stay on it, if you honor the process, you will become someone your younger self could only dream of. There will be days when you feel behind, days when the progress feels too slow. But remember, the oak tree was once an acorn. The mountain was once dust. Growth is often hidden before it becomes seen. Trust the roots before you expect the fruit. And even if no one claps for you, clap for yourself. Applaud the small wins. Celebrate the discipline. Because you know what it cost you to keep going. You know how many times you wanted to quit and didn't. That is strength. That is glory. That is the reward of an educated mind and a spirit that refuses to die. You are not just building a routine, you are building a life, a legacy, a standard that says, "Tinai, do not bow to weak habits. I rise, every time, no matter what." There is something profound about the quiet decision to no longer be at war with yourself. That moment when you stop negotiating with your limitations and instead begin a new conversation. With potential, with hope, with the future version of you that's been waiting patiently on the other side of your excuses. That version is not a fantasy. It is a calling. And every time you choose growth over gratification, you take a step closer. The truth is, most people do not fear failure. They fear responsibility. Because when you truly own your mind, your time, your habits, there is no one left to blame. There is no cushion of denial. No more pointing to your childhood, your boss, your bank account, or your circumstances. You realize that the power to rise has always been inside of you. That realization is both terrifying and freeing. It demands accountability, but it delivers liberation. The road of mastery does not rush you. It does not entertain your impatience. It invites you to slow down and sit with yourself, to face what you've buried beneath distractions, to trace the roots of your patterns and pull them out without flinching. That is the work, the deep, sacred, honest work. It is not glamorous. No cameras will record it. No one will applaud you as you stare at the mirror and say, "Today I will do better." But it is in these silent vows that greatness begins. And you must protect that greatness like a sacred flame. Guard your mind from the idle chatter of the world, from the constant barrage of noise disguised as relevance, from opinions that masquerade as truth. You must be the gatekeeper of your focus, because the more powerful your mind becomes, the more you will be tested. Not always by enemies, but by invitations. Harmless, pleasant, glittering distractions that seem small until they grow roots and steal your fire. Educating your mind is not simply about reading books or consuming content. It is about reprogramming the way you interpret life. It is the decision to ask deeper questions when others settle for surface answers. It is the art of seeing challenge not as punishment, but as preparation. It is the discipline to rise from every failure with the wisdom it gifted you. And most of all, it is the courage to walk through darkness without losing your inner light. There will be times when your progress is invisible, when it feels like you're spinning your wheels while others are sprinting ahead. Do not let this deceive you. You are not behind, you are deepening. You are developing resilience, character, and spiritual clarity. Those are things that no one can measure, but they are the very foundation of lasting success. Remember, the tallest trees grow the deepest roots. Your roots are reaching into strength right now, even if you can't see it. Let your pain teach you, not trap you. Too many people build identities around their wounds. They wear trauma like a badge, believing that their story is fixed in suffering. But you are not what hurt you. You are what you choose to become after healing begins. And healing begins the moment you stop giving pain the pen to write your story. Reclaim the pen, rewrite the narrative. Replace why me with watch me rise, watch me grow, watch me destroy the habits that kept me small. Discipline is not a punishment. It is an expression of self-love. It is saying, and I care enough about my life to shape it with intention. Weak habits often feel comforting, like old friends who let you hide, but real friends tell you the truth. And the truth is this: you cannot take your place in the world until you first take your place in your own life. You cannot inspire others if you are imprisoned by your own patterns. So you must become your own liberator, and you do that by consistency. Not by trying to change everything overnight, but by changing something every day. Small, meaningful choices, over and over. That's how the chains of weak habits are broken. They rust and fall away in the face of unwavering commitment. So stop waiting for motivation. Motivation is fleeting. Let purpose guide you. Let vision wake you. Let the image of the person you were born to be drive you until your habits match your destiny. The mind is powerful, but it is not invincible. It must be nourished. You cannot fuel your body with junk and expect strength. Likewise, you cannot fuel your mind with fear, gossip, and passivity and expect clarity. Choose your inputs wisely. Read words that challenge you. Listen to voices that build you. Sit with silence that centers you. Disconnect from the chaos long enough to hear your own thoughts. Because in a noisy world, peace becomes a superpower. Peace is not passive. It is intentional. It is cultivated. And from that peace, strong habits are born. Habits rooted in stillness, not frenzy. In discipline, not drama. In wisdom, not worry. Your habits reflect your inner world. So if your habits are chaotic, ask yourself what chaos you've allowed to dwell in your mind. Then clear it out. Sweep the corners. Evict the thoughts that no longer serve you. Your mind is holy ground. Treat it that way. And when you slip, when you fall back into the old ways, do not shame yourself. Shame is the echo of weak habits trying to pull you back. Respond with grace. Grace is not an excuse, it is fuel. It reminds you that you are more than your worst moment. It whispers, get up, try again. You are worth the effort. Listen to that voice. Follow it. Let it lead you back to the path every time you drift. You are not weak for having weak habits. You are human, but you become powerful the moment you decide to change them. That decision is sacred. Honor it. Defend it. Wake up every day and recommit to it. And over time, the habits that once held you back will become the very proof that you were never bound to them. They were only bridges. And now you are crossing into new territory. You must believe in the possibility of change more than you believe in the comfort of sameness. Most people cling to the familiar not because it's good, but because it's known. But the known is not always safe. The known can suffocate. And if you are not careful, your habits can become your prison. That is why education is not a luxury. It is a lifeline. You educate your mind so that it can see doors where others see walls, so that it can build ladders where others build excuses. Even now, as you read these words, your mind is choosing what to do next. It can dismiss them, file them away as another passing motivation, or it can absorb them, wrestle with them, let them ignite a flame. That choice is yours. But know this, every moment you delay your growth, your lesser self wins, and your future self waits. She waits in the gym you didn't go to, in the journal you didn't write, in the book you didn't read, in the chance you didn't take. But the beauty is, she also waits in the moment you decide. She waits in the breath you take before choosing differently, in the voice you use to speak power over your day, in the water you drink instead of the soda, in the walk you take instead of the nap. She is not far away. She is near. She is you, awake, aware, and armed with a mind that no longer tolerates weakness in disguise. There will always be resistance. Weak habits do not die quietly. They shout, they claw. They remind you of how easy it once was. But ease is a liar. It promises rest and delivers regret. Choose effort, choose growth. Choose the version of life that demands something from you, because it will also give you everything. You were not born to coast. You were born to climb, to create, to conquer. But before you can do any of that in the world, you must do it in your mind. You must rise before the sun and rise again in your soul. You must anchor yourself so deeply in truth that no wind can move you. You must decide that you are done living at the mercy of moods, cravings, and fears. And then you will rise. You will rise with clarity in your eyes, with strength in your spine, with purpose pulsing through your veins. And you will begin to walk with a new rhythm, not frantic, not desperate, but steady. Steady as someone who knows their power, who understands that their habits are not just actions, but seeds. And each one is growing a life, a legacy, a future. Educate your mind until it becomes your ally, until it champions your growth instead of sabotaging it, until it chooses stillness over stimulation, wisdom over worry, discipline over delay, and watch what happens. Watch your energy shift, watch your voice grow, watch your life transform, quietly, faithfully, beautifully. And when people ask you how you did it, you will not boast. You will smile, and you will say, "A sigh educated my mind. I buried my weak habits, and I rose." The world is not waiting for another voice to echo the noise. It is yearning for someone brave enough to be quiet within, strong enough to live with purpose, and clear enough to choose intention over impulse. When you educate your mind, you become that person. You no longer respond to life based on the conditioning of your past, but from the clarity of your present. You no longer follow the herd into distraction, addiction, and avoidance. You begin to lead yourself into spaces of discipline, of self-respect, of long-term fulfillment. But let's be honest, re-educating the mind is not glamorous. It is lonely at times. You will outgrow people, places, and patterns you once thought you could never live without. The mind you are building cannot thrive in the company of those who are committed to their own decay. There will be conversations that no longer feed you, habits that once soothed you but now make you sick, and environments that feel like cages when they used to feel like home. This is the cost of awakening. This is the price of transformation. And though it is high, it is holy. You will start to notice the silence more. It won't be empty. It will be full of revelation. You'll start to hear your thoughts without the filter of habit. You'll notice how often your mind tries to talk you out of greatness, how it clings to comfort like a child clings to a familiar blanket, even when that blanket is soaked in fear and laziness. But you'll no longer listen. You'll begin to respond instead of react. You'll stop asking for permission to change. You'll stop waiting for the perfect moment to begin. You'll stop negotiating with your lower self, and you'll simply move forward, upward, inward. There will be mornings when your body wants to rest, but your vision whispers louder. Mornings when the bed feels like a grave, and the comforter is trying to bury your calling. But you will rise. Not because you feel like it, but because you've trained your mind to obey truth over emotion. You've educated your spirit to recognize the cost of one more excuse. You understand now that every delay is a thief. Every wasted hour is a betrayal of the life you could be living. And so you rise. Not perfectly, but powerfully. Each day becomes a new chapter in the rewriting of your identity. And identity is everything. You cannot behave in a way that contradicts who you believe you are. So you begin to call yourself disciplined, even on days you struggle. You begin to see yourself as strong, even when you are still shaking. You speak to yourself like someone worthy of becoming whole. This is not lying to yourself, it is loving yourself into alignment. Words have power, and when your words align with your vision, your habits follow. Slowly at first, then with certainty. Do not underestimate the quiet rituals. The water you drink first thing in the morning. The journal entry before your phone. The walk without headphones. These are not small acts. These are declarations. They declare to your mind, and I am no longer ruled by noise. I am no longer enslaved to impulses. I am no longer available for weakness disguised as self-care. Because true self-care is not indulgence. It is intention. It is doing what must be done, even when you don't want to, because you love yourself enough to push through. You'll begin to separate pain from punishment. You'll start to see discomfort not as a signal to retreat, but as a sign that growth is taking place. Weak habits taught you that ease was the goal, that if something is hard, it's not meant for you. But now you know better. Now you understand that diamonds are made under pressure, not in pillowcases. That strength is forged in resistance, not relaxation. And so when the burn comes, whether in your mind, your body, or your spirit, you lean in, you welcome it, because you know that beyond it is a version of you you've never met but always dreamed of becoming. You'll start to eat differently, not because someone told you to, but because your mind no longer craves the fog that follows sugar and salt and grease. You'll move your body not out of punishment, but out of reverence. You'll take care of your space, not for aesthetic, but because chaos in your environment invites chaos in your mind. You'll declutter your surroundings like someone preparing for royalty, because that's what you're becoming. Royal in posture, regal in focus, disciplined in thought, unshakable in purpose.